Well, hello, welcome to this How to Win an UnAward webinar. I'll be your host for the next 45, 50 minutes or so, Darren Caveney from Comms 2.0 and proud organiser of the UnAwards. Thanks so much for joining, giving up some time on this cold, windy, possibly wet Monday lunchtime. So what better to talk about amazing work and recognising the great things that you've done over the past 12 months. We've got lots to get through. We will be recording the session as well, so you can share it with colleagues. We've got a glittering array of com stars on our panel today. We've got quite a big panel. Why have a small panel when you can have a big panel and spread the knowledge and the expertise? So we've got past winners. We've got judges, we've got sponsors, we've even got someone that's all three of those things, which is a claim to fame. So great to see so many of you on the call, some familiar faces and some new faces, which is great. I'll probably do a quick explanation of the UnAwards first off, just because some of you may be new to the UnAwards. So we're in our 10th year of the UnAwards. It's a very special year. So to win an UnAward in the 10th year will be really extra special. So I believe, and I'm very biased obviously, but I think they're the most accessible awards across the comms industry. They're free to enter. They're really easy to enter, thanks to John Paul and the team at Cannes who have created and updated this year actually a really simple entry form, which is really helpful. The UnAwards have got big as well. We had almost 600 entries last year, so they grow each year. And I'm touching wood at this point because I get very competitive because I like it to keep growing. So we want to beat 600 this year. That is certainly my intention. We've got 22 categories, so there literally is something for everyone. So if you're, thinking about, well, which categories to enter, the entry form allows you to enter multiple categories. So if you've done something great, you could potentially enter it into, best creative, best low cost comms, best use of social media, best use of email. There are multiple options for you to enter. We also have a brand new category this year, and I'll let Alex talk about that in a moment, which is very exciting. And then, if you're new to the UnAwards, we have a lovely ceremony which is booked for Friday, the 5th of December. It's always the first Friday in December, and it's a daytime event. And we meet at the home of the UnAwards, which is the Everyman Cinema in the Mailbox in Birmingham. And we have a lovely ceremony, which is my favourite work day of the year. And then we watch a film afterwards, which is kept secret until the day. And then we have a bite to eat and a few drinks for those that enjoy a tipple. So and that's £30 a ticket. So again, I think we try and keep it really accessible, which we can do only because of the lovely sponsors, many of whom are on the call today, who make the UnAwards possible. One thing to say on the closing date, it's the 28th, it's a Tuesday the 28th of October is our closing date. And we never, 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 ever extend the closing date. We never have, and we never will. So unlike some awards that are out there that do extend, don't bank on it because we won't. So the 28th at midnight is the closing date. As I say, you're able to enter multiple times into the UnAwards, and we'll talk about that a little bit more in a moment. And also this year, new for this year, on the entry form, we're asking people to nominate their favourite tune, your favourite song, your favourite track, and Fusion Radio. And we've got a DJ from Fusion on today, Helena. We're going to create an UnAwards playlist for the day. So something a little bit different for this year as well. So lots there to chew on. So in terms of the format for the webinar, we are recording it, as I say, so you'll be able to share that with your colleagues, hopefully. I'm going to go in no particular order to members of the panel to ask for their tips and advice on what makes a great entry, to look at some of the barriers, because of course, you're busy. There are barriers to entering, but we think you can overcome them. And then what we'll do is we'll open up the chat to attendees. So you can either come off mute and speak and ask a question. So just raise your hand, or alternatively, you can put your question into the chat, and myself and Danielle and John Paul will endeavour to work through those questions. So hopefully that sounds good. As I say, thanks to John Paul and to Danielle for getting us hosted and organised, and it's always really helpful. So let us begin. So I think for me, first question is, and I'll open this up to all on the panel. What is your one top tip for what makes a great entry? Many of you are judges as well. We've got past winners on the call. What in your mind stands out as kind of your number one top tip for what makes a great entry that can get you seen within what can be a cluttered category, lots of entries, lots of great work? What stands out? What gets you seen? What is going to grab the attention of a judge? And or perhaps I'll come to Helena first. I'm going to come to Helena first because Helena's a previous winner. She's a judge and she's now also a sponsor. So Helena literally ticks all the boxes. So yeah, if you had one overall top tip, Helena, for what makes a great entry, what would you say?
Yeah, thanks, Darren. Many hats on. Some might say I get about a bit, but that'd be rude to say, maybe. I think stand out. Lead with your headline stats. If you've got something that is really you're really proud of, and it's your big impactful thing, say it first. Stand out from the pack and say that loud and proud at the top. You can go into more detail later, but give your headline stat right at the front, what you wanted to achieve, and then just be bold, be plain, be simple, and state your headline fact. You've got time later to go into it, but that's what will catch the judge's eye and will stick in the memory about that impact. It's important that people really show their impact, show that they've listened, that there's been a need, that they've filled a need in a community or something like that, and that there's been an outcome, and that outcome is an impactful, and lead with that headline. I think that's my big impactful statement, I think, Dee.
Brilliant. That's really helpful. Thanks for kicking us off, Helena. I'll get to Laurel next if I can, because again, Laurel is a judge and a previous winner. So yeah, top tips for you, Laurel, in terms of entering and your judge's hat on as well. What you look out for as a judge?
Sure. I'm going to say something that's going to come as no surprise, but if you do, particularly with campaigns, an evaluation or something like that, that evaluation then just feeds into your entry. It's almost like, for me, it's like a straight lift into then the actual entry award. So then you're already prepared for an award. So that there should be, like, in theory, minimal work. But the other thing for me, again, no surprise, is if when you're doing your evaluation, your inputs, outputs, outtakes, and outcomes, that's your top level. That's the thing that Helen is talking about in terms of that's where your top line stats should come from, because that's your ultimate of what you want to aim. And I've seen some really great entries, and they do fantastic outputs and outtakes. And then there isn't the outcomes, and I'm thinking there must be some there. So don't forget what is your ultimate that you want to achieve, and make sure you put that in there and actually just show it in a really sort of clear way. So bullet points are fantastic, because when you're a judge, a whole load of text coming at you that you need to extract. Oh, so did they achieve what they wanted, etc., etc. When you've got loads of entries, you don't always have loads of time. So the clearer you can keep your entry in terms of showing what those top level things are, the outcomes, that the better, and that makes you stand out.
That's really helpful. Thanks, Lauren. I think bullet points. I'm all about the bullet points. Yeah, thanks very much for that. So we've got Sadie from eShots, the finest email marketing platform in the world, would we say?
So I definitely agree with that, Darren. Thank you.
So again, you've been a judge, and thanks again for sponsoring this show. When you're looking specifically at things like email, what jumps out for you when you're judging? What are the things that you look for? What marks out a great entry?
I think I would definitely echo what Laurel and Helena were saying, and tying those evaluations and headlines back to the original stated aims and objectives, actually pulling the whole story together from this is what we wanted to achieve, and clearly state what you wanted to achieve, as well as how well you smashed through that target, which I'm sure all of our listeners will have done. So that's really important. The other thing, I guess, potentially for my category in particular, which is no surprise, email marketing, actually including some of the creatives and including copies of the emails that we can look at as well, because that also really helps to sort of illustrate and make campaigns stand out and memorable for us while we're judging.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. And it's I think those entries that do have the creatives in, they do help jump out, don't they? Again, in a
Really
really
do.
cluttered category, that's helpful. Brilliant. Thanks, Sadie. Really pleased that this year again we've got long time sponsors Parago from Wales. We've got Chris Elias and M Northcote again on the call. Great to see you both. How's Wales looking today?
Drier than it has been for most of the week and the weekend.
This is good.
I was about to say wet, Chris.
So we've got part wet, part dry. Yeah, thanks again so much for being on the call, but being sponsors again this year. You've judged many categories and entries over the years. What if anything that hasn't been said so far do you look for as judges? What marks out a great entry for you?
You go first, Dan.
Thanks, Chris. I'm a sucker for a story. If you've got an impact story in there, the people, a story of a person, of the people who've been who come through in the work, I think that really adds something to it. Storytelling is obviously massive for all of us, but I think there's a route to be able to do that as well within the nominations to really highlight who experienced the difference or the person at the center. For me, I think we can use our storytelling skills in the development of the submissions themselves.
Yeah.
Sorry, go on, Darren.
No, you go, Chris.
I was going to say, I'm glad I put you first because mine kind of ties on nicely to that. I was going to say every good story kind of tends to have a nice context at the start to kind of define the characters, what you're trying to achieve, what the kind of plot lines are. But the best stories usually have a little bit of disaster in them as well. And I think as communications people, our day-to-days, always tests our resilience, puts out the environmental challenges, some of the political challenges, some of the budgetary and funding challenges. They're all kind of real life things. And I think from judging a couple of categories, I always like it when someone says, look, it wasn't all plain sailing, because nothing authentic really is. But I think identifying some of those challenges that you have to go through in the context of trying to achieve those outcomes and what everyone else has said always adds a bit of a depth and kind of understanding to that as well. So if you have had to overcome any particular challenge during the achievement of whatever fantastic campaign or achievement that you're submitting, don't be afraid to kind of tell the story around that as well.
It's really good advice, isn't it? Yeah, we are storytellers, aren't we? It's our job, as Roy Keane would say, it's our job. But bring those stories into your award entries. Yeah, really helpful. Thank you both. We've got the world famous Louisa Dean on the call with her UnAwards certificates sitting proudly on her wall behind her. 3-time winner.
That's
Am
right.
I correct in saying? Yeah. So thanks, Louisa, for joining the call. Yeah. So from your perspective, you've entered some years, you've not been shortlisted. Other years, you've been shortlisted and not won. Other years, you have won. So what for you, as someone that's entered over a number of years now, what really makes a compelling argument for a great entry for you?
Well, I think when I won, I probably had a great story because I was covering the funeral of the Queen. So I don't want that to happen every year for everybody, but I think everybody has said exactly what I would say, that you need to have really clear objectives about what your entry looks like, and you need to measure them and evaluate them. You need to have really good storytelling in there, and you need to grab the attention of the judge because we are looking at a number of different entries. But yeah, the storytelling bit is what's really, really key. And the other bit I would say, because I have entered and we've not been shortlisted, I've entered and we have been shortlisted but not won. Don't give up. Sometimes your entry and your application is just not at the right time. I know one that we entered last year probably wasn't at the right time, and we're entering again this year. So I think it's just remember, just because you didn't get to that shortlist, you might be able to get there next year or next time, but be really clear about your outcomes, your objectives, and your evaluation.
Brilliant. That's really helpful, Louisa. Thank you. So we have Niamh and Farid from the famous Manchester City Council social media team, consecutive winners in 23 and 24. So I would expect defending the crown this year. What for you? I mean, obviously you've had successes in multiple years now. What stands out for you? What are the things that I suppose when you know in your busy schedules, making the time to get these entries in? What are your top tips for others on the call?
Um, God, I think just trying to be like quite creative with it. But I think with us, the way that we do our nominations is the same way that we sort of do our approach to social media. So we do the creative side, but we also balance that with the evaluation, with the data analysis. So I think for us, it's just trying to strike that balance between the both of them. And then if you can also be creative with that and be original, and then talk about how much you value you and the user, that would be really beneficial. But yeah, also don't be afraid to get into the nitty gritty of it. Like we like to be quite fun and creative, but we've also got quite strong strategies. We're not ashamed to sort of shout about that and go into that as well. You know, it's all awards like this are also like big learning opportunities. So, you know, we're here to just sort of share that with everyone really as well.
Yeah, yeah, that's really helpful. Yeah, Neve, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think sort of some of like what Free's touching on there is sort of what I've been thinking about. I think a big thing for me is it's, you know, really big events happen, really exciting stuff where you can get creative. But actually, I think sometimes the stuff that, you know, in our jobs we consider, I don't want to say boring, but, you know, like the day-to-day stuff, I think don't shy away from that either. So, like, you know, I'm trying to think back. I think it might have been Danielle on this call, but last year at the UnAwards masterclass, there was a really, really good presentation about I think it was school attendance campaign. And it was probably like one of my favourite sort of talks of the event last year or earlier this year. And I think because it's not sort of something that was really far out and a huge opportunity that none of us can relate to, it was actually, you know, I have worked on school attendance campaigns. I'm sure many other sort of like colleagues in local authorities here have. So stuff other people sort of can look at and relate to, and that actually shows how something that is quite sort of mundane, I guess, to us is being done exceptionally well. To me, is something that is quite worth talking about and stands out. And I think sort of going off what, again, Freed sort of said there as well, I guess it's not just about saying this is how, you know, like this is our really specific individual approach to things. But if you can sort of say, this is what we have to show other people, this is what we have to, you know, contribute to the industry, this is what you like, how valuable sort of our learnings have been, I think to me that also makes good winner rather than something that's quite self-contained. If you can then go to events like this or like the masterclass and sort of then give back to the industry and the sector, then to me, I think that is quite, you know, I think that makes you a good winner because you're doing something with it as well.
Yeah, yeah. No, I like that. That's great. Thanks, Neve. Yeah, thanks both. You mentioned Danielle from Staffordshire. We've got both Danielle and Gemma from Staffordshire who managed to win an unprecedented 5 UnAwards last year. So yeah, to both of you, and obviously Helena was part of the team then. So we've kind of got 2.5 of the team. If we call you a half now, Helena, from last year's kind of multiple winning team. Yeah, anything for you to add on? Obviously, very successful last year. How did you manage that? Yes, there's some great work, but you have to enter and you have to tell that story, as we've just heard. What were the lessons for you with the wins last year?
Do you want to go first, Jen? Or?
Yeah, I'll go first. I think for me, I'd never entered any awards before, certainly not for sort of my own work or work that I've kind of spearheaded. And I think the biggest thing I would say in terms of a top tip is confidence. Be confident, even if you secretly aren't competent, just be confident in the work that you've done. Because I think we've all been to award ceremonies, I think, where we've looked at who's won and gone, I could do that, or I'm already doing that. And I think it's just having that confidence to put your head above the parapet and say, no, I'm actually going to showcase the work that I've done. And, you know, we've done some really good stuff. And I think it's about thinking, don't worry about anybody else. Just think about yourself and your team and what you're doing and you know, what potentially you can bring. And don't kind of hide your light under a bushel, as it were. Just be really confident in what you've done and what you can bring to people, because there will definitely be people out there who think,
there's some really good ideas in that, and we can work with those, and you can inspire other people.
Yeah, really helpful that. And yeah, we have all thought that at award ceremonies, I'm sure. And it's that thing, isn't it? The judges will pick the best work that was entered, not the best work that was done, because they only judge what's in front of them. So yeah, absolutely take the time to do it. Yeah, thanks, Gemma. Danielle, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think I'll follow on perfectly from Gemma's example. I'd say confidence is key. If you're like me and you struggle with imposter syndrome, you don't always seem to believe in yourself. But I 100% believe in my work, and I believed in my campaign. So when I started to write my award entry, I was lost for words for the first time, basically. I didn't know how to write something, and I'm a very experienced writer. And I think it was because it was out of my comfort zone, and I thought, well, I don't actually deserve to win this award. I'm not good enough. So I turned that into believing into my work, as if someone was going to take this campaign away from me if it didn't win. So I was like, I'm going to fight for this piece of work. I'm going to put all my passion into it, and I'm going to put that into the award entry. And I think you also need to remind yourself that if someone is telling you that your work is amazing and that it's award winning, and Helena said both of those things to me while I was working on the campaign, just believe them and have some confidence in yourself, and then you might just come away with an award or 5.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. That's really empowering. Yeah, thank you for that.
Sorry, Darren, I will just come in and
yeah,
say,
no, go for it.
Both Danielle and Gemma's work was outstanding in very different ways, very different types of campaigns. But what they both did was absolutely lead with data and information that informed the work that they're doing. Danielle knew exactly where she was starting from in terms of the benchmark. She had great statistics on school attendance figures, and they had really clear targets about what they wanted to get to and what they thought was achievable within that. And she tested that. Likewise, Gemma knew exactly what was happening within the highways division. They knew the amounts of complaints that they were getting. They knew really detailed stats about how much work the highways department could do, how many potholes reports they were getting. It was all really data informed, and that really sang through because that guided the work that they were doing. It gave them clear objectives, it gave them milestones for all the work that they were doing. So they were really able to put a clear plan in place and things to address those. What very different types of campaigns activity, but they knew they were able to target what they were doing with those campaigns so that they could have effective, impactful results. And like Em said, they told that story through the campaign through the entries in the UnAwards. And so that's why I think they shone out, because it was always data informed all the way through the process.
Yeah, thanks, Helena. That's really helpful, and I guess leads us nicely onto a data expert in our midst in the form of Alex Waddington from Whetstone Communications. Again, another sponsor. Thank you, Alex, for that. So, Alex, yeah, and top tips for you, and maybe you want to mention something quite exciting this year as well.
Yeah. Well, I'll just briefly follow on from Helena. And I think really queued me up nicely there. So in terms of, I think actually for the best use of data category, as Helena's sort of said there, if you can show you're using or you've used data to, even before you've done anything, but to understand the challenge and the audience, that stands you in good stead for any award, I think, in the UnAwards. But I think for me, for the best use of data category, and for Farid was a judge last year as well for this category. And I think in the discussion for the winning entry, it was the use of data right throughout the campaign. So right at the start, also in testing, so the elements of A/B testing, so using it to refine tactics, and then as already been said, demonstrating the impact, so not just the outputs or the outtakes, but the actual, the outcome and the impact, and thinking about that from the start. So that would be my kind of top tip on the data side. I think on the new category, best AI human collaboration, which I'm really excited about. It is brand new, so it'd be interesting to see what we get. It's an emerging area, particularly in public sector, but I know there's some exciting things happening from some of the conversations. I think I think this is one where it doesn't necessarily have to be. It could be something actually where you've used the AI to a degree to what it's good at, but then it's bringing the human side in as well. It's the whole point of the category, and when we were thinking about it was this isn't about just so if you've used it to rewrite some social media copy, that's unlikely to kind of, I'd say very unlikely to win you an award. If you've used it for something where actually it saved you hours, and then you've used that time to deliver an outcome, or it's helped you progress something you wouldn't have been able to do, and then you've brought your or your team have brought their skills and all the sort of human qualities, all the comm skills to the fore, then that's probably, in my mind at the moment, where what's going to sort of stand out. So it's very much new, and I know that part of the idea is to showcase and actually to encourage others. And the great thing about the UnAwards, as we know, is all the learning we get from it. And I think hoping that this will help some of those thinking about it, or maybe wrestling with it a bit at the moment. AI, how do we use it? We're not allowed to use it. How do we take this forward? We can see potential, but how do we do it? It will help in many ways with showing what can be done. I think the final thing to say is that obviously ethics, transparency, and safe use of AI is important as well. So that would be something I'd say that in the judging we'll be looking at some consideration of that. But yeah, I'm really, really interested and excited to see what we get from that.
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks, Alex. Yes, I'm really excited to see what comes in, and it's always good to have a new category, isn't it? And see what's out there. So yeah, thanks very much for that. Shall we go to another winner? We've got Linda McLean from Police Scotland. Hi to Linda, thanks for joining. And Linda, you were a multiple shortlisted last year and a winner. Yeah, and anything to add in terms of your learning process from last year and how you won? Any tips or bits of nuggets of advice for those attending today?
Probably not a huge amount more than has already been covered, but I suppose I came to this call last year to get an understanding of, what it would take, because I'd heard about the awards, we'd never put in for them. And I think if I left with anything, it was with a kind of positivity about the fact that the way we were planning and the way we were evaluating was exactly as someone has already said, what you need to be able to put in a good entry. So I took a lot of reassurance from that. I think the main things for us are similar to what everyone else said. What was the actual impact of the work? So we had a lot of people in our team who'd said, I've got one we could put in. And when you look at it, there is a lot of work being done on it, but maybe not quite the impact that you would hope. And it wasn't necessarily helping us achieve our kind of policing objectives. So really focusing it on what exactly was it that you did that helped you achieve those outcomes. Two other things for me, one would be evidence. So I know a couple of people have started to say it, but I asked a lot of people about why they made decisions about the tactics and why they made decisions about the audience, and if it wasn't based on insight that I could put into the award submission, then then it wasn't going on. And then the other thing was, because I've done a wee bit of this kind of thing before, I got quite bored, not maybe the right word, but overwhelmed with the amount of things that I was reading, that I thought you need to keep this really succinct and really clear and follow a kind of well-documented structure that people in comms understand. So we all know OASIS, we all know AMEC, we all know the kind of impact points. So I think for me, it's always just trying to keep it really as closely aligned to that as you can, so it's easy for the judges to read as well, rather than them having to interrogate things. But ultimately, I would just say, if you've got something that's got impact, then go for it. You might as well. As you say, if you're not in it, you can't win. And it certainly is a boost for the team when they get that recognition.
Yeah, thanks, Linda. It's an important point, that, isn't it? I think we underplay that sometimes. It has a massive impact on a team and on an individual, even an organisation. And I've yet to meet a chief exec or a leader, or whoever the senior person is, who doesn't love an award being plonked on their desk. So yeah, I think there's a lot to be said for that internal kudos and the impact it can have internally.
There's one other thing I was going to mention, sorry, it was a wee bit kind of random, but the process of applying for it's actually really good as well, because it allowed us to pinpoint where there was holes in some of the work that other people were thinking they might wanted to have submit, and then it allows us the following year to say, you know, have you learned from that, and you know, can we make that better, and can we change how we're doing what we're doing. So it's definitely helped with a couple of things, and there has been people we've said in the team it's a great piece of work, but it's not quite there. It's not, if you look at how all these other people are winning awards, you're not going to compete. So you know, think about that and do it in the future. So hopefully that learning will be there with the team as well.
Brilliant. Thanks ever so much, Linda. So next we've got Jack Grasby from Nottinghamshire Fire and Rescue Service, and Jack and the team won Best Small Team, and it was a very popular win in 2024. Jack, so how did you manage in your small team A to get an entry and B to win it? What are your top tips?
So I think my number one tip has already been touched on quite a bit. So I would probably talk around measuring your work constantly. It was said quite early on. I think it really is a valuable point around making sure that you're always evaluating on a day-to-day basis everything you're doing, so that when it comes to submitting an awards nomination, you're not having to pull stuff together. You've kind of got it there. That gives you confidence that it's going to be a good entry, and I think that comes through. And also it gives you exactly what you need, which is the evidence to go with it. And then obviously having a really clear link to a business objective in the work you're doing, and trying to link all the work you're doing as much as you can to business objectives. I think that is key, and that would have been my main bit of advice. But as that's already been touched on, I'll not completely cop out. If I had a reserve tip, it would be maybe slightly different to the mainstream, and I do like to be different as much as I can. I think someone I used to work with, Bridget Ahern, said to me a while ago, you've always got to have skin in the game. It's quite a popular phrase that's used all the time, but I think if you're working in football, for example, I don't want to go too off tangent, but people say if you want to be a world-class footballer, you need to be around world-class players. And similarly, if you want to work in business and you want to work in a certain area, you want to be around people that have done that well. And I think possibly my tip, as well as having good evaluation and all the other bits that have been talked about, is just trying to spend time around the UnAwards and around the people that are involved in the UnAwards. So, you know, and obviously this panel being here is a massive step in that. This webinar is designed for that, but attending the masterclass events, speaking to the judges and the sponsors and Darren himself in terms of just general conversation. And I guess I'm talking about networking here, essentially. I'm going to ramble on about, I could have just said it's networking, but I think, you know, the awards panel is brilliant, and, you know, I know they're good people with a lot of integrity. I'm not suggesting, don't take this the wrong way, I'm not suggesting they're going to give you favours, but I think by being around people that are doing good work and that are winning awards and that are getting shortlisted, you will soak up some of what it takes. And I think I've been shortlisted for quite a few awards over the years, and never managed to win one, but I've still tried to keep around, you know, that network, and eventually you will land it. But it does come from picking up little bits here and there from the people that are talking today, because that will, you know, you will absorb all that. And eventually I think, you know, just by getting amongst it and doing that networking and being around the awards, you'll probably have a much better chance.
Right, yeah, thanks for that, Jack. Some really important points there. Thank you. Next, I'm going to go across to Graham Davidson from Letterbox Distribution, who were new sponsors last year, and it was great to have you on board. Graham, you've been in and around, you know, awards over the years, and obviously exposed to the UnAwards last year. Any thoughts or tips or nuggets of advice that you could share?
Yeah, I mean, I think with my academia hat on, because I've recently just done my master's in communications, it's all kind of textbook stuff I'm thinking about. And by the way, that was 30 years too late doing that as well. So, I should have done that back in the day when I was in university.
Hey, better late than never.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, finally got there. Yeah, finally. I'd break it down to 4 different areas. So I think area 1 would be purpose. So what's the overall purpose? What you're doing? Are you trying to change something? And then lay out in the strategy what the why and what you're doing after that, and then go into detail on the tactics, the how did you go about doing it, And then finally, of course, the outcome. So what was the impact? I mean, people have said this already, but yeah, get that measurement right. Find out your conversion rates as well. If there's a conversion rate involved there, like if, as you know, I do leaflets here. If we're leafleting something, is there a QR code on there that you're able to measure how many times somebody scanned it? Is it taken to your website? That then you're able to measure how many times somebody has filled out a form or responded to something, so all that kind of detail. Those 4 areas, they'll break it down, lay it out very simply. So purpose, strategy, tactics, outcomes. That would be it for me.
That's really helpful and a nice, simple way to think about laying out your entry. And I guess for you, Graham, obviously print and leaflet distribution can be entered into multiple categories here as well. So there's just a note, I guess, to attendees about that. Yeah, brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dominic from Behaviour Change Network is again a sponsor this year. Thanks so much, Dominic, for your help and support. And yours will be another popular category again, I suspect, this year. Anything specifically around your category that hasn't already been said, Dominic?
I think I'd just bring together a few of the things that people have said. And I think kind of as a judge, one of the things that's really noticeable, I think it's much easier because you're reading a lot of entries, that the ones that have that kind of absolute clarity and narrative and bring it to life, so everything around storytelling, but that kind of very clear kind of, this is what our objectives are, this is how we did it, and this is how we evaluated it, and this is why it deserves to win. That I think some of the entries, if you have too much information and you don't have that kind of really good story and narrative, it's difficult to absolutely pinpoint why it should win. So I think that's what kind of, as well as doing really good work, that's what makes a big difference to the ones that I think get shortlisted and win compared to the ones that don't. And I just wanted to say that, so Danielle's one from Staffordshire, the Little Heroes one, that was an absolute masterclass in how to, I think, demonstrate really good work that had a really good impact, made a real difference, and was structured in a way with a bit of humour, and it was just really well written that kind of made it stand out and was a truly deserved winner. So just wanted to say well done to Danielle again.
Brilliant. Thanks, Dominic. So shall we lastly, by no means least, go to JP at Can. And Can have been long time supporters and sponsors and partners for the UnAwards and really helped to contribute to even making the thing happen. So JP, everything you've heard there, any thoughts, reflections, and anything specifically from your end, from Can and the work that you're doing with teams across the land?
Yes, absolutely. Our first thought is that it's lovely as it gets colder to have this to look forward to in a couple of months' time. I think if it wasn't there, we wouldn't have that moment all together in a few months. So thank you, Darren, for putting this in all our calendars. We're sponsoring the Best Collaboration Award because we believe that we do our best work when we work together. And we judged Linda's entry last year to be the best, not just the project and the collaboration and the outcomes, but the submission itself was just really pleasurable to read. And I think one of the reasons it stood out is because many of the entries, and I think this is a common danger, is to think that more is more. And actually, we know that it's possible to do a submission in less than 30 minutes. I believe Rob McCleary did it in less than that and won. So it's well worth remembering that, more isn't more. Clarity, use things that are evidenced is a really neat way of filtering out a lot of stuff and also making it so much easier for you to do. I also think as well, like, it's worth imagining that you've won and you're now at the masterclass and you're sharing with your peers and colleagues what happened. Focus on the things that you would share with everybody, because even if you're not successful, this will appear in comms files, and that will, you're doing a good thing whether or not you're successful in winning or not. And absolutely, as other people have said, what did it do for people? What was the impact on the audience? That's your headline. I also think something that's really useful, whether you're successful or not, is to talk about, if you can, what it saved. So if we'd done nothing, what wouldn't have happened? Because I think that more and more we've got to be able to prove what we do saves money for our organisations. It's not often understood, but it does, and comms is the ultimate catalyst for accelerating savings. So if you can get that into your headline as well. I remember Edna Birnpong, who was at an agency, at an ICB, but's now head of comms at Liverpool, found out that a winter campaign had saved the ambulance service £5 million, and she popped that in, and it became very successful. So think about savings, think about impact. But for everyone's own mental health, less is more. You can do it in 30 minutes. Collaborate as well. Don't take it all on your shoulders. You might have partners and colleagues that are more than willing to help, and that can make it easier for you. And make sure at the top of it, what did it do? You can explain how succinctly afterwards, and ideally how much it saved. But I think primarily do it for yourself. It's a good thing to do in 30 minutes, and do it for your peers, because the award may or may not happen. I'm sure that everyone's entries are award worthy, but Louisa had to try multiple times, and I think lots of people here had to try multiple times. Do it for yourself first, and do it for everyone else, and hopefully you'll be recognised.
That's really helpful. Thanks, JP. And I think, Rob McCleary was very naughty, wasn't he? Because he admitted that he spent less than 30 minutes on it, and he also did it on the final day before closing. He's not alone in that. Each year, I go on about this all the time. 50% of entries land in the last 48 hours. So we could have this thing open for a year, and then most of the entries still come in the last 48 hours. I think there's something about comms people loving a deadline there. But for Rob, it worked. So absolutely. If it's the last day and you haven't entered, don't be put off. You can still win on the last day. So that's really helpful. You also, JP, mentioned comms files. So for those that aren't aware of comms files, you can find this if you go to the CAN website, if you go to the homepage of Comms 2.0. Within comms files, which CAN have pulled together now over a number of years, we've got over 1,500 previous UnAwards entries. So it's an absolute treasure trove of what people did. Do go and have a look there, not just for this, but also, if you're beginning a new campaign tomorrow, we always say don't start from scratch, go and have a look, because probably someone somewhere has done something similar, and what can you learn, what worked, equally what didn't work, so we don't replicate mistakes. So do go and have a look at comms files. So we've got about a quarter of an hour to go. Everybody's still on the call, so this is nice. When you see the numbers drop, that's always a bit worrying, isn't it? Have I said the wrong thing? Nobody's left the call, which is very nice to see. Thank you. So in terms of attendees, if you want to ask a question, you can either drop it into the chat, and please do that now, or raise your hand and we can hear your lovely voices as well. So either of those two options will work. I suppose just one general one, whilst we give people a chance to do that. A couple of the barriers I mentioned at the outset were people saying that they're too busy to enter. And some people, I guess, it was the point that Danielle from Staffordshire made about confidence, believing that they haven't done anything that's worthy of entry. Anybody got thought, and just raise your hand for this or shout out, anybody got thoughts on either of those two potential barriers? Neve, I think, has got a hand up.
So I think, it's frauds in Manchester in terms of time. I think a big thing for us is the fact that we sort of reporting and analytics and sort of going over our work on a pretty regular basis is like quite baked into how we do things generally. And that sort of means that when it comes to applications like this, a lot of it, I think someone may have mentioned earlier, a lot of it is a bit of a just drag and drop, because and I think actually sort of the nature of what we do is we look back on campaigns with statistics, we write reports saying how things are going, we provide updates to stakeholders and whoever. So I think you might be surprised how much you've already got of your application that's like written up, if that makes sense. If you sort of had a look at previous reports and had a look at previous figures and different presentations you've done, you might be surprised at how easy it is to just actually, you've got the building blocks, so you can just write a little bit of context around it, and you've got quite a strong, starting point. And then I think in terms of, the bit about feeling like you don't deserve the award, or that you've not done something that is worth submitting, not to I'm not going to say that, but I think actually the positive thing about free events and free entry and stuff like this, like Darren puts on, and what Comms 2.0 do is there are some events where it's like 400 quid to enter. So if you really don't believe in yourself, even if you should, if you really don't think that there's any point, then 400 quid's a lot of money to drop on something you don't think is worthwhile. The fact it's free means you literally don't lose anything. Like you've literally got nothing to lose. There's no reason not to give it a go. And I think the more you do that stuff like that, the more you enter these things, actually, that's how you do build confidence. And that's when you do start to be able to look at other winners or other sort of entries and think, how do we compare? Why did they win and we didn't? Don't mean you were worse. It just means you've actually got something to work to next time. So, yes.
Yeah, that's really helpful. Thanks very much, Neve. Danielle, I think you had a hand raised on that point as well.
Yeah, I think my advice as well is about taking your time with the application. I mean, I know, like you say, people think they don't have time because sometimes it can be quite daunting of like, you've got to sit here and you've got to fill this out. I did it in Word first and kept coming back to it because just like if you had a job interview, for instance, there's always something you think, oh, I wish I'd have said that. I haven't included this. And then I got other people to look at it as well before I pressed submit because they would tell me, why is that not in there? Like, that's really good because you know it so well. You think everybody else does. So yeah, I'd say kind of like work on it for a few weeks until you're ready to hit submit. So that might have been why mine was probably 48 hours submitted, but it was actually being written for weeks on end. So yeah, it's kind of a bit of a catch-22 of, yeah, you don't have the time, but take your time with it because like Neve said, it's free and you're shouting about your work, and put some time in your diary to kind of block that time out of I think we're always behind the scenes in comms of like, we'll shout about what everyone else is doing and just give yourself some credit and shout about what you're doing for once.
Yeah, really good point. Thanks, Danielle. Chloe Woodman had a hand up. Hi to Chloe, and I think has put the question and the thought into the chat now. Chloe says, presuming it's appropriate for managers to nominate employees, colleagues, those less confident, have someone advocating for them. Absolutely, yes, 100% that. And there have been winners that have gone through that process absolutely before where they've been nominated. So would absolutely advocate for that and actually push for it, because there's that awful phrase, and comms people aren't good at their own comms, which I don't really like. I think we should be brilliant at our own comms because you've got so many comms skills, but there is that thing in many of us where we don't put ourselves forward. So absolutely a yes and a big thumbs up to that one, Chloe. Thank you. Sarah has asked, do non-shortlisted entries receive feedback on how they could be improved? That's a really good question. Generally not. And I say that only because there are so many entries, and in some categories, I think in best low cost comms last year, there were 60 odd entries. So it would be a lot for the judges to do. But if you would like feedback and you have done that, we can always try, because the judges are really diligent and they do make notes. I mean, I have a look afterwards at all of the comments that judges have made. So we can certainly try, but wouldn't promise, just purely because of the amount of entries they're going through and their busy workloads. But we would certainly try if it was useful, Sarah. Thank you for that. Yeah, Danielle Taylor, in a roundabout way, the masterclass tells you how to improve. Absolutely. Again, because of our beautiful sponsors, many on the call today, we run a masterclass of all the winners in the following spring. So it'd be probably April or May next year, where we get many of the winners to come back and talk about what they did, how they won, what they learned, what they do differently. And I think that's, again, a free to attend event, which we're all really proud of. We've got a question from Joe Crossland up in a beautiful part of Scotland. Are you expecting people to use AI to make their entries more succinct? And will it be obvious? And would you prefer they didn't? Now, I've got a view on this, but I'm going to ask Alex, because Alex is kind of fast becoming the comms world's AI expert, aren't you, Alex? Just to build you up there.
Well, Darren, that's very kind of you, because I was going to defer to you as the the instigator. UnAwards. I'll give you my thoughts. So this is not policy, I think it's fair to say, Darren. I suppose you look at generative AI as a tool, as an option, the same way that you've got spell check, same way you might have the option to give other people eyes on your application. So you may you may, have someone who's willing to read it. I guess in a way, there's no stipulation for how you go about shaping your entry. We don't say, you've got to do it all yourself and you're not allowed to show anybody else it. So there's, I would sort of view it as a tool to be used. I think if I can come back to the human AI collaboration sort of idea, it'll be probably quite obvious if you just let AI write it and put it in. And it probably won't be the best, because I still think the human adds a lot of value and will add things that the AI wouldn't. So my view would be, and this is just my view, would be that if it's a tool to use and it's appropriate to use it and you can use it safely, because you also, most people agree to their award entries being put in the public domain. There may be some stats in there sometimes that you don't want, it may be redacted. I don't know how often that happens. So you just think about also how you're using the AI. Do you really want to be putting that into what might be the public domain? Is that appropriate? But that's just my 10 penneth on it. Darren, I don't know what you think as the instigator, and Chris has got his hand up, so Chris might want to give a view as well. Chris.
Yeah, that's really helpful. Thanks, Alex. Yeah, Chris.
Just a really short one. The term generative AI, it kind of, on the face of it, thinks that you're looking at a blank piece of paper and you're going to generate something from nothing, or perhaps maybe a couple of prompts. But just as a day-to-day working tip, we've started looking about, there's loads of YouTube videos about it, particularly with ChatGPT 5, about how you can use AI and ChatGPT generative agents to be not just generate stuff or write stuff for you, or even truncate stuff down into, what we all started using it for, I think, into a couple of word counts or whatever. But if you ask it to assume the role of a critique now, and perhaps you may have more information about what kind of persona you'd like that critique to be. So you could say, as a comms judge in a thing, this is what I've written. Could you give me some feedback on it? And what we found then, it does give you the feedback on it. It probably tells you that you're using superfluous words. It probably tells you that things aren't, maybe all the advice that we've got on here, focused enough on metrics, that type of thing. And then if you weren't comfortable in actually having something generate for you, because it's not yours, then essentially that critique is we often find is quite a great help in, particularly when we're writing bids and things like that. So just, it doesn't have to be all or nothing. You could still use it as a tool to support your bid, but perhaps in slightly more innovative ways on occasion.
It's really good thoughts, Chris. Thank you. JP in the chat has just put, AI is a great way of getting a quick first draft. And then someone's really helpfully put the timetable in. Dominic, thank you for sharing the timetable. If I was organised, I'd have done that. Thank you for doing my job. That's really helpful. Thank you. JP says, keep refining your prompts with outcomes and tell it the fields you need creating for the form. It will get you 60% there, but then check everything. And there's a couple of thumbs up for that. So thank you for that, JP. I tell you what's been lovely. Whilst we've been on the call for these past 54 minutes, I've had some UnAward entries land, and I'm not making that up. I've had the notifications pop up as we've been chatting, so that's great to see. A really important question from Jack Butler. Sorry, I always get confused with midnight deadlines. Is it the morning of the 28th or the evening of the 28th? That's a brilliant question. It's the evening of the 28th. So on Tuesday the 28th, when you get to 11:59 a.m. as I do, because I'm a very sad man, I watch them coming in just to see who's last. And the latest one we've ever had was 30 seconds before the deadline, literally. So yeah, it's the evening of the Tuesday. So you've got Monday, Tuesday that week to get your entries in. Hopefully that answers your question. We've got a couple of minutes left. Are there any more? I think we've covered everything I wanted to. If there's any more questions or thoughts or observations, please pop them in the chat or raise a hand and we can do that. Yeah, Laurel.
I just wanted to jump in with a thought that occurred to me, as well as my, in terms of how to make a really good entry, as well as my lift and shift from any evaluation you might have done. That last section for me always feels like the most important section to what you leave your judges with in terms of a lasting impression. So I tend to take that section rather than regurgitating what I've done elsewhere. I literally do a couple of bullet points, maybe like, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 of, we did this and this is why we should win, and we did this is why. And I also try and then in those sections cover off the categories that we've entered so that it actually meets the different criteria, which can sometimes be quite diverse, but really nail it in there and add something a little bit different that could just swing it with the judges, if that's helpful.
Yeah, that's really helpful. And again, bullet points are to be thought about, aren't they? Absolutely. Thanks, Laurel. Before I round up, has anybody got a final thought or comment before we leave you all to go and get some lunch, because you're probably all hungry by now? Any final thoughts? Put a hand up and I shall come to you. Yes, Fareed.
Yeah, I mean, I guess just one thing to sort of round it off in is like, I mean, the fact that you apply anyway, this is what someone said at a previous award, but the fact that people apply anyway, I mean, you're already putting your head above the parapet.
Yeah.
So you're already standing out and throwing your hat in the ring as one of the best in the field. So, you know, go for it anyway. That's the main reason to go for stuff like this.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's a good statement to end on, Farid. Thank you. Go for it. I would endorse everybody going for it. I would do, obviously, because I want to see us get above 600 entries this year. But this stuff's powerful. When I was in house, you know, I've been in the shoes of some of the people on this call today. I always push my teams to do it. I was the person that did an award entry on a Saturday because I'm a sad man. It's worth doing this stuff. It's the stuff that singles you out. It's the stuff that makes a difference. It's the stuff that gets you seen. You know, it's going to jump out on LinkedIn profiles. Come December the 5th, LinkedIn will be full of UnAwards winners, and everybody on this call has got an equal opportunity to be one of those people. And I think it's a lovely thing. So I would say good luck to all of you. Thank you for everyone that's attended today. We will get the recording out to you. Thanks to our brilliant panel. We've got the world's biggest panel today, but you've all added so much to it, and I knew that you would. So thank you for all of your thoughts and your inputs. It's been really, really helpful. Thanks to our sponsors, because I say it every time, but it's true. We couldn't have the UnAwards without our sponsors. It's vital. And so thanks for the support that you give to me, but to the broader industry. It's really appreciated. And then finally, thanks to Danielle and JP at Cannes for hosting us and getting us organised today, and just for being marvellous people. So on that note, we're going to finish. 2 minutes to go. So professional. It's been great to see you all. Thanks for your time. Good luck with your entries. Go and get something to eat. See you all soon.